That is incredible for sure. Well, cool, man. I'm looking forward to getting into your story and what you're doing, which is great. And to begin that process, I kind of want to hone in and go into another calamity that we all went through, which was surviving this pandemic. And about 4 years ago, we were all trying to figure it out, and everybody's response around the world was different. So ultimately, how did you survive that time period, and how did it either influence or change the way that you do work now?
Yeah, I mean, I've been running a remote business for quite a long time, so I was quite fortunate when it happened that I was already set up, in readiness for running the business online. But I one of the things which did change for me personally was I 2020 was going to be the year where I really cracked public speaking. So I'd been booked on about a dozen big conferences across the UK and Europe. And for us in the UK, they announced it on, I think it was like March the 26th, whatever the Friday was then, and announced lockdown. And essentially, we knew we were heading into 5 months worth of lockdown. I think it was originally going to be three, and then they extended it. And within 24 hours, I'd lost £28,000, so about $35,000 worth of bookings. Just with people, they're just panicking. And so they sent, I was getting emails and messages saying, "Hey, Rob, that event, yeah, it's not going ahead anymore." Right, for obvious reasons. Thankfully, a couple of them did do it online. And then so I went from that sort of upset with the business and then straight into with family life. It was, I've got two daughters. They're now 10 and 8, so they were much younger. And the September is just one of those typical things, the way life works out, right? So the September before, we'd both girls had just my youngest had just started school, so they're both in school. And I'd hit like a really my wife and I both hit a really good rhythm with work. We had those pockets of peace whilst the girls were at school. Me and her could focus on our relationship a little bit more. And then, of course, all chaos, breaks loose in March 2020, and we're all thrown back together again. Homeschooling didn't happen. Well, I tried,
Yeah.
but for me, homeschooling very much looked like, well, let's just take the dog out for a walk and hope nobody catches us,
Yeah.
out to the woods and go and play some games and stuff like that. And thankfully, we're also blessed with like just the most amazing weather we've ever had here in the UK.
Wow.
It was pretty much, 5 months worth of sunshine, like 30 degrees plus sunshine all the way through lockdown. So we got to just hang out in the garden, get the swimming pool and the hot tub out and just like, chill out basically. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was chaos, but it was kind of in a way good chaos.
Okay. So let's get into what you do as a
Mhm.
coach and as an author and as a speaker. If we boil this down to brass tacks, I put you in front of a bunch of third graders at career day.
Yeah.
One of the kids is curious and they're like, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How would you answer that child?
Oh, third graders. Right. So I'd probably say something like, hey, when you go to the shop and to buy some sweets, some candy for yourself, and you have to decide with that $1 or $2 pocket money that you've got, whether like how many sweets you can get. And, the shopkeeper on the other side who's selling you those sweets is trying to figure out whether he can, he's made enough money, extra profit from the sweets he's selling you to be able to pay for food for his family or pay for his, house. My job is to help that shop owner to optimize that money which he's making, and figure out creative ways to keep as much as he possibly can do. So that's my third grade of attempt.
Yeah.
The grown-up version is I'm a business coach, so I help mostly service client businesses to optimize their business. Like a lot of the time, you hear business owners say things like, "Oh, I have a cash flow problem." They don't actually have a cash flow problem because typically the money flows in and it flows straight back out again.
Yeah.
What they actually have is two problems. They have a making more money problem and then a keeping the money problem. So my job is to help them to optimize productize their service. They kind of package it up and think about the value which those products deliver for their clients, versus the act of what they actually do. This is about the results of what they do for their clients, and then price accordingly based on that outcome or result. And generally, like the pricing side of things is I find the most fascinating because everybody immediately, when they want to grow a business, they turn straight to marketing. Oh, I've got to go and get in front of as many people as I can. But actually, if you get the pricing thing right, you can double your income and have half the clients. Therefore, you've got to do less marketing, not more.
Yeah.
But again, it's mostly down to an individual's like confidence, their own money mindset, their own value system. and their ability to be able to articulate that to other people.
So what did you want to be in the third grade? What was your dream?
I wanted to be a pilot, believe it or
Okay.
not, Air Force pilot.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I'm colorblind, and so
Oh,
slight issue about landing on aircraft carriers that they in a radio silence they either give you a red light or a green light as to whether you can land or not, and
yeah.
I wouldn't be able to tell the difference between the two of those.
Wow.
So yeah, so and then I went to our careers day, and they said, oh well, you can't fly, but you could be an engineer. I was like, what? It's not glamorous. That's not
Yeah.
like Tom Cruise and Top Gun, is it? It's
Uh-huh.
like, so that dream kind of went by the wayside. But gradually over time, I got into sort of shortly after that, I got into we had our first computer at home, so I started coding. I started to get into the internet. Building websites, building out sort of systems and programs and things like that. And I just really got into it. So actually, the engineer prediction was kind of right, but not fixing planes. It was like tinkering with computers.
Okay. So it was a natural segue. So I gotta
Mm.
wonder, and with all of these advancements with HI and technology and all of that, they're gonna have to come up with a way, a surgery that will make people not colorblind anymore.
Well, you can wear glasses and things like that, but yeah, I mean, eventually they've got to come up with something
Yeah.
pretty smart to, some kind of DNA based, like, I don't know, injection that will make
Yeah.
you not colorblind anymore. I don't know, or swap your eyes out into non-color. I don't know whether color blindness is actually in the eyes themselves or whether it's in the processing that sits
Right.
behind it.
Yeah. Whether it's in the optics or not. Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be what to localize. So, what were the foundational seeds that were planted into you when you were a kid that made you so highly driven to want to help people, to be diversified? How did that happen?
Yeah, good question. And this is quite a personal sort of answer. I hope this is sort of appropriate to share, but and I don't want any sympathy by the when I
Yeah.
share this, but
Sure.
part of it, I had incredibly busy, very hardworking parents who did I was very fortunate that uh, I was smart enough to get a scholarship, but they also worked really hard to put me and my brother through private school. But inevitably, when you've got really hardworking parents who are doing things like that for you, we didn't have any holidays. Kind of a lot of the time, we were left to me and my brother left to our own devices, and I wouldn't say that we got a huge amount of like nurturing and love from either of our parents, really. So for me, coach. It was really interesting. I don't know if you've read about sort of shadow work. I forget it was Carl Jung, I think, who talked about shadow work, and your shadow as an adult, or your shadow is created typically in your childhood, and then as an adult, you then essentially manifest that shadow as a way to get out of life the thing which you maybe lacked as a child. So for me, where I didn't get much love, I through writing the books, through coaching, through helping the business owners, through doing podcast interviews and things like that, there is a certain, this is where the ego speaks. There's a lot of kind of adulation which comes from that. People are, oh, that was so helpful, or that insight you gave me about pricing, that was one like really, completely changed my business. So I get a lot of positive feedback from that, but that's me in that during this process of sort of going through coaching and helping people, making up for the fact that I didn't get that love as a
Gotcha.
child. So it's quite interesting. I mean, it all comes with hindsight, doesn't it? And
Yeah.
40 years worth of sort of experience, but that's where my childhood sort of helped me the most with what I currently do now. But there was this transition period where your shadow feels like incredibly uncomfortable. When you finally learn that thing about yourself, you're like, oh, nobody loved me when I was a kid. And it sounds like really like pitiful and woeful, but actually on the plus side, it's like, no, I'm gonna put it's like a superpower at that point. I'm gonna find creative ways to put that to good use.
I know that feeling exactly because I've always wondered. My dream was always get into broadcasting. Like, why did I want to do that? Why was it that I wanted to put my voice on a mountain and put it out to all these people? And it was kind of the same feeling when I was growing up. There was just a level of, hey, I'm right here. Hey, what's up?
Yeah.
That kind of a thing. And yeah, you do. You're kind of protecting that younger version of you, but you're edifying it psychologically speaking with things that you didn't get that you want other people to feel.
Mm,
It makes sense. It makes total sense. And it's
yeah.
Jungian, so he was pretty intuitive about those things.
Yeah, and it's quite interesting what you said there as well. Like, because I'm imagining, I'm guessing that there was also a side of it which was like Joe, you're showing off again. If there was that part of you that wanted to come out and just,
Yeah.
um, be the presenter that, on TV or whatever it looked like, that
Sure.
you were kind of, it was shut down,
Yeah.
and it was like that no, that's shameful. Joe's out there like showing off again, and it's like,
Yeah.
actually, like, there's lots of presenters out there who are just like brilliant, down to earth human beings that get incredible things out of their guests when they come onto their shows and things like that. Like, again, they're doing good.
Yeah.
So, but it's such a shame that, as adults, I try and be very careful now with my daughters. Like, if I hear myself or see myself shutting them down with whatever it is that they're trying to do, thinking that maybe that's going to protect them. That's kind of like the opposite of actually what they need.
Yeah. Yeah.
My youngest is like totally into Harry Potter,
Uh-huh.
and they're about to create a new TV series, Harry Potter TV series.
Okay.
So they're looking for the next Hermione Granger and Ron Weasley and Harry Potter for this series, and my girls both fit into the age groups for it. So we're like, no, do you know what? Let's put in an audition for it.
Yeah.
Send the tapes in and have a bit of fun doing it. And if we don't get
Absolutely.
it, well, at least we gave it a shot.
Yeah. Yeah, I went to Universal in Orlando this summer, and they have that Harry Potter land. Oh my. It was unbelievable. It was like they pulled the set designers from Hollywood in, and it was crazy. They had butterbeer, they had the whole thing. It was wild, you know. So,
That's it. Yeah, we actually skipped. It was kind of like bittersweet. So, because we went to Disney at the start of the year and at Easter, and
uh,
the most incredible holiday. But when we then added Universal on top of it, it started to get a little bit,
oh,
it's just,
uh-huh.
when it was a holiday of a lifetime. Don't get me wrong. We saved a long time for it, but it was like it was just getting crazy. But thankfully we've got Harry Potter. I doubt it probably pales into comparison what it's like in Orlando, but we've got a Harry Potter world here, and it so
Oh, good.
happened we got tickets to go there on my daughter's birthday. So she was made up. She loved it anyway.
Oh,
But
that's awesome. That's awesome. We got to go there. We spread everything out over a week, but the 2 days that we went, the minute we got in to the Harry Potter area, within 10 minutes it rained in very London fashion. Just total like rain. And it was sunny, everything was fine, but when we got there it rained, so it was wild.
that's
Um,
typical. And
yeah,
there's two sides to it, isn't it? There's two different. There's the castle, and then there's also the Great Hall, isn't there? So you
yeah.
have to go get a train between the two or
Uh-huh.
something.
Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely. Which is cool. It's just a part of the adventure, so it was fun. So I'm curious, growing up the way that you did and just kind of what you evolved into now, who's been a hero? Who's been that inspiration for you in your life?
Um, well, it's interesting. So people who I remember like growing up, because again, I mean, I'm guessing we're probably similar-ish sorts of ages.
I'm 51.
Okay, so I'm a baby then compared to you. I'm 42, but
Okay.
uh, there's this age range between like people who are in their 40s and 50s where the internet wasn't what it was today.
Yeah.
So we didn't have this like mass media hysteria where the Taylor Swifting of and things like that happening. It was all just we had four channels, like TV channels for
Huh?
me growing up, right, on TV. So,
Yep.
but actually, one of my heroes was one of my teachers from school. So I had to do Latin, but we had Reverend Hadfield who taught us Latin, but he was also Reverend, and it was a church school. So we had a cathedral where we had to go into 3 days a week for every morning, basically sing hymns and I'm not particularly religious, but it was a great education. But Reverend Hadfield used to do the sermon once a week, and it was like the highlight of my week. It was never like preachy or overtly like religious, but it was very like down to earth, philosophical or practical, tactical stuff that he always brought to it. And I just remember just being like, that was the only reason I wanted to go to those services in the morning, was to see Reverend Hadfield. And then also I'd have my Latin lesson like the same day as he would do his sermon. So first thing I do, like, I'd get to the lesson early. Like, which kids go to their lessons early, right?
Yeah.
But so I could go and speak to the teacher and talk to him about what he said at the sermon.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's always kind of stuck with me from my school years.
Yeah. So if you can meet anybody alive on the planet right now that you find fascinating and spend some time with them, see what they do, ask them some questions, who would that be?
There's a fantastic coach, and I know this is quite close to home. But there's one of the most amazing coaches, a guy called Rich Litvin. With his books actually it has pride place on my shelves behind me. He wrote a fantastic book called The Prosperous Coach. He just has just this amazing like way with working with clients, and the way that he speaks, the way that he conceptualizes ideas and thoughts and things like that. Um, I'd love to meet him at some point, even just to shake his hand and be in his presence. I think you'd probably end up sort of getting something from it. But yeah,
Yeah.
he's just somebody who I really aspire to as a coach, look up to, and I can see that he's doing great things as well and inspiring hundreds, if not thousands, of coaches to kind of make a difference.
So in your craft of being a speaker, what has been the best speech you've ever witnessed in your life? One that was transformative that just blew you away?
Oof, that's a really good question.
I can tell you mine real quick
Hmm.
while you think.
Yeah, go for it. That might inspire me to come to think of something.
So back in 2004, we have the Harry Truman was we have the library in Independence, Missouri. It's in the Kansas City Metro, and Bill Clinton came to town. Man, those doors flew open. He came in. To this day, it's we're going on 20 years. I still remember what he talked about. Solar panels in New York City, all of these energy efficient ways, just everything that he said. He was amazing. It was crazy.
Yeah, gosh. So mine isn't probably up to that sort of
Right.
caliber. There's some so you will have I hopefully heard of him. There's a guy called Steve Bartlett who runs a
Yeah.
podcast called Diary of a CEO. So
Yeah.
I booked to go and see him. He did a speaker tour earlier on this year. So I booked to go and see him up in Birmingham. And I was a bit like, not really sure quite kind of how to, but he's an interesting guy. He's interviewed some really fascinating people. But his talk was amazing. He did this analogy of like climbing the mountain basically and the different stages of the journey, and then what happens when you get to the top and you see other mountains that you want to climb, and you don't often like look at the mountain that you've just climbed. So there was like this quite a powerful message behind it.
Yeah.
Again, a lot of the people I tend to tune into are very much in that entrepreneurship sort of business space.
Yeah.
um I'd say unfortunately, like our leaders, I wouldn't say have so much charisma as your presidents, for example, and politicians that you get in the States. I don't know what the difference is. I guess it's like that Eton kind of public school boy type thing here in the UK versus you've got some really flamboyant sort of leaders in your country.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
none of our leaders particularly stand out, unfortunately, in terms of speeches they've given.
But are you were you a fan of Boris?
Yeah, I thought he was great. I thought he was like down to earth. I think he was kind
Okay.
of, a lot of the time you meet prime ministers who are just kind of out of touch with, just the common person. But I think he was pretty in touch with
Okay.
people. Yeah, he did a few wacky things every now and then, but
Yeah.
I tell you who I really admire. I've always admired Barack Obama. I think
Yeah.
again, like meeting people at their level, I
Yeah.
think is so important with leaders. And I hate to say it, Biden as an octogenarian, yeah, you look up to your elders and you have with a certain level of respect. But again, I think he's massively out of touch with like the common person, as is Trump.
Yeah.
Millions of dollars underneath, billions of dollars underneath him and or behind him, and and just again some of the weird stuff that he gets up to. But
It's
you know,
bizarre, man. It's really, I feel like I'm in a weird dream because American politics has always been kind of a weird place, but now it's way, way bizarre. It's like over the top. So it's wild. So, with all of these things that are going on in your life and everything that you do, what is it that gets you up every day and motivates you to change lives, but also hold enough back to evolve as a human and do what you do with your family?
Yeah, so the thing for me, so I've only been coaching 8 years, but I learned very early on I wasn't a big fan of corporate. Just and they do them as a coach, you can't really see the impact you make. So like the clients I work with, they're small one person businesses typically. And when I see clients, be able to afford to save up to get married, to buy their first house, to go and afford to be able to get their first office and hire their first employee. Um, or I've even had a client where his wife was working in public sector and she ended up they could afford for her to leave the job and come into to work. And so now they run a family business. So those are the things, like seeing the difference which I can help people make with their businesses. I can see myself coaching easily for the next 10 years or more if I have to, just to be able to see those changes happening.
Yeah.
And the nice thing is, so my actual coaching work probably only accounts for about maybe 6 to 8 hours a week, if that,
Okay.
most weeks. So I run a group program. I have a couple of one-to-one clients as well. So I'm very limited actually in the amount of coaching I have to deliver, which means that then, stuff like this massively energizes me. I love meeting and speaking to new people.
Yeah.
I've this morning I've kind of taken the morning off just to catch up on a few bits and pieces. But when I can take time off, like every Friday, I don't work. It means I can go to the gym, or I can go out, go and have a massage if I want to, or go for a walk with the dog or my wife, or whatever it might be. So um, trying to kind of optimize my work to give me a bit of freedom back to spend with myself. And uh, I don't know how relevant this is, but I had a bit of health news over the summer as well, which has also brought things very sharply into focus. So it sounds worse than it is, because the moment somebody says tumor, you make all sorts of assumptions about what it is. But I got diagnosed with something called a subependymoma, which is a very benign, very slow growing grade 1 tumor in my brainstem.
Oh,
Um, and then it was discovered by accident. The average age for it to be symptomatic is mid 50s. So I've got a few years left yet before any, even if it grows,
yeah.
it probably might not grow. I don't know yet,
Yeah.
but knowing that now, all of a sudden, it kind of like where I thought I might be able to draw my pension and have a bit of retirement, and all of the traveling that my wife and I thought we might do when the kids grow up. I'm like, screw that. I think we might need to do some of that stuff now.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. Well, yeah, when you do start knocking on that door of mortality, and now that I'm getting over 50, it's not something that I think about a lot, but sometimes I'm like, wow, I'm on the other side. The sun's starting to set. It's not rising anymore. You're not, popping out all these dreams thinking about what you're going to do. You're doing it.
Mm.
And, it's just kind of a part of the ride. But when something comes in there in the middle of it, it's like it really makes you feel like, our time on this planet is finite and it's time to shine, you know.
Well, I'll ask you a question back then, Joe,
Yeah.
if that's okay
Oh,
with what you've
please.
just said there.
Yeah.
Um, what what does feel like the sun's shining, like rising for you?
Oh, you mean like what gets me motivated? Or
Yeah.
oh man, just everything. Just being creative, family, raising my kids, my wife, all of these things, just the moments. And I'm in jazz radio. So the jazz
Mm.
musicians have taught me about and they didn't do it directly, but everything that happens once. There's such a special spectral way of being alive on this planet and seeing everything. Like when a bug flies into your vision that you've never seen before. You're like, wow, I've been down here a long time. I've never seen anything like that. It's just the wonder of everything. A painting,
Yeah.
having a good conversation, the connectivity, especially in this modern day and era. It's so interesting you bring up old technology. We in our age gap are in a very prime place. I remember my first computer. 93, went to Best Buy. I got a Packard Bell. That thing was just magical. I got the encyclopedia on disc. I put it in there and I was like, oh my God, the whole world's opening up. But, anyways, I think it's just that just being fascinated at the possibilities every day that life throws at you that you just don't even realize. And it's
Yeah.
sometimes it's fun to just wake up. A friend of mine told me at one point he got to a point where he was nervous going to his in-laws' house. And someone told him, don't have any expectations. I think sometimes it's good to wake up and not have any expectations other than being a human and mingling on this planet with everything that's possible. So it's kind of
Yeah.
fun, you know.
See what you just said there? You're so far from sunset. You're like 7 a.m. through and through.
Right. Right. That's why it makes me nervous. I love being here. And but we all know that there's going to be a time where it's going to come to an end. And that's the thing. It's like you just want just a little bit more wine in your cup. It was so
Mm.
good, but you know that it's gonna be over with.
Yeah.
So it's I think it's natural a part of our human you know, timeline that we are down here. We're always cognizant of things, and I guess it's just knocking on a door in a way I didn't think it would.
Well, I don't see. You say that we're cognizant. I think the vast majority of people aren't. I think the vast majority of people just go through life thinking it's never going to end, and then all of a
Yeah,
sudden you get handed a jolt, whatever that jolt looks like.
yeah,
My dad passed away 13 years ago, and um, even then, I thought that that would probably give me something of a jump start,
yeah,
because I was just so focused on my businesses, and my girls were starting to arrive at around about that sort of time and stuff. But it was one of those things where it has to happen to you in
yeah,
order to get like what it means to you,
absolutely.
if that makes sense.
100%. Yeah, because my dad passed away around the same timeline, and my son was young, and it was kind of that. It was a weird time, so yeah. But it doesn't happen until it happens to you. That's the quote right there. That's
Yeah,
totally it.
yeah.
So, so of all of these things that you've done, evolved into, and accomplished in your life, what are you the proudest of?
I'm proudest of my family. I
Yeah,
think, I've had challenges as I've shared sort of growing up and things like that. So to have a lovely, amazing wife and two just the most beautiful daughters. And we did threaten to have a third, and then we're like, no, we can't spoil this. We've lucked out with what we've got here. Like, imagine if we had a boy. God, imagine what would happen
right.
then.
Totally.
So no, so I'm hugely proud of that. And I have still have ambitions for my business. There's things that I want to achieve because I've just been in entrepreneurship for so long now. There's stuff that I'm kind of like, right, there's like just a short list of stuff that I need to get signed off, and I can go, right, I'm done now. I'm happy with that. But overall, with the books I've written, with the friendships that I've made, the partnerships, and through the business and various things like that. Even if today was the day and that was it, I think I'd still look back and go, no, you gave it a fair shot. You did a
Yeah,
good job.
lived well for sure.
Yeah.
So, if anyone out there wants to hire you, learn more about what you're doing, get your book, any of the good business, where do they go? How do they do that?
So I've got a gift actually for all of your listeners, a free signed copy of Take Your Shot,
Okay.
for everybody who listens to this. Wherever you are in the world, I even sent a copy to Mongolia earlier on this year, believe it or
Wow.
not. So I will literally ship them anywhere, except for the only places where I struggle to get them delivered is Spain and some African nations. So,
Okay.
there's a slight caveat to that.
Sure.
But that's at fearless.biz/TYS for Take Your Shot. And then LinkedIn's a good bet as well. Just jump onto LinkedIn and connect with me there, and shoot me any questions.
Cool. Robin, this has been great, man. I'm so glad that we connected. We kind of had a two-way avenue, a full-bodied podcast. That's good.
Absolutely. Well, it should always be a conversation, shouldn't it? It shouldn't just
It
be like,
should be.
hey, look at me. It should be like both of us sort of, batting things backwards and forwards. So,
Just
yeah.
vibing. I dig it. I dig it. Keep doing the good work, sir. Thank you, Robin. I appreciate it. Best of luck with everything.
My pleasure. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you. Take care.